Fun conversation there with Dee Snider. And I'll tell you what, I mean, first of all, you don't need to be a genius to know what band he was talking about there at the end. But I'll tell you what, I mean, I love what he's trying to do here with this, getting some rock and metal stuff going on at the Super Bowl. I don't know if a petition driven by him is going to be the thing that moves it. I think it's wonderful he's putting this much effort into it, and I hope it does. And I love his motives. I love what he's trying to do, but we'll see. And we'll keep an eye on it, and I think it absolutely should be supported, and hopefully it makes an impact. But he is obviously very, very passionate about it, so we'll keep an eye on that. Hour number 2.
It won't happen.
John Dolmayan is here from System of a Down. He just walked in. Are you familiar with the story? You know what Dee's trying to do?
No, I have no idea what he's trying to do. I get just based on what you just said.
Yeah.
I understand the reasoning for it.
Yeah.
But they're already attracting males from the ages of like 22 up to like 60 or 70 years old, the same males that predominantly listen to rock music.
You bring up a great point that he didn't. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, this is strictly marketing for them. It's about enlarging the cap space for the NFL's profitability, and the only way to do that is to encourage more viewers that are female. So the more female viewers they get interested in football, that's why you'll see a lot of things from. This is, of course, not being in the NFL, just understanding how business works.
Yeah.
They do a lot of things that will bring more female viewership, and having pop acts in the Super Bowl is one of the best ways to do that.
That's a great point, John. I wish you were here 15 minutes ago because I would have left and thrown that to Dee. Yeah, you weren't
trying to park.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, what Dee Snider is trying to do is he's got a petition going online, and he's super out there, and his goal is to get AC/DC to play the halftime show of the Super Bowl next year, and he believes AC/DC is a true rock act, but also one that is mainstream enough that would check all the boxes, that would get through the NFL's sort of thing. But I didn't think of the marketing angle being that, and you're so right when it comes to the NFL, all the dudes are watching no matter what.
Of course,
that's trying to pull in.
Not to say that the ladies aren't fans of rock. Obviously they are.
Right.
But I'm talking about reaching as many people as possible. Right. So that's their whole goal.
Yeah.
Their goal is not to be on the same level as they were last year. Their goal is always, like any corporation, they're looking to expand.
Yeah.
Expand their profitability, expand their viewership, etc.
Yeah.
And really, it just boils down to how much they can sell the rights to TV for and how much they can generate in ad revenue. And the bottom line is when you have J-Lo and Shakira, you're going to generate a lot of ad revenue for the spots before and after them. That's really all it's about.
Comes down to the marketing. Yeah.
It comes down to marketing.
Yeah.
They don't care who's on the halftime show.
Yeah.
I certainly don't.
Yeah.
I don't know why Dee Snider really cares. I get that he's trying to encourage people to be more into rock, but you have to understand things are reciprocal. You're going to have periods of time when rock is prevalent, and then you're going to have periods of time where it's not so important.
Yeah, well, I applaud his effort of what he's trying to do, but I don't know if it's going to. I mean, you bring up some valid points. My point to him was he's putting his eggs in the AC/DC basket, and that's a band that's been largely inactive. So I said, do we even know if they'd want to do it?
Well, not just that, but you're talking about a band of older men, really older men. And as much as we respect AC/DC, you have to think about what young people want as well.
Yeah.
And 20-year-olds or younger aren't necessarily going to be looking for AC/DC in their latter years.
Yeah. Although AC/DC so massive, and that music gets played everywhere constantly. I would think that's the one band.
A lot of NFL games will play AC/DC.
Yeah, that was his point too.
But you'll never see him. You will never see AC/DC at a halftime show. So just like you'll never see System of a Down at a halftime.
Well, System, your band I could see because it's that's a little more extreme. That's you guys don't have a "You Shook Me All Night Long," at least not yet. Maybe there's one coming. Who knows?
We got some pretty big hits.
You do. No, yeah. I'm not diminishing what you have, but I'm just talking.
I mean, radio hits,
right?
Songs that people know. I've been to football games and basketball games where System songs are played.
Yeah.
But again, it just boils down to, are we marketable to the demographic that they're trying to reach at that particular time?
Well, listen, man, it's good to meet you, and I appreciate you coming in. And I was telling you earlier, I had one of your other band members here, Shavo, was here a few months ago talking about the different things he has going on. Seems like what's going on in System of a Down land is kind of interesting right now because everybody's kind of doing some things on the side and doing their own stuff. But also now the band is coming together to do some shows, right?
Yeah, interesting is an interesting way of putting it. Dysfunctional is a better way of putting it.
That's what everybody is. I mean, he's pretty much said that as well.
The bottom line is the reality is none of us should have time to do other projects. We should be so focused on the band and working on the band and exploring our talents within it, making music that people can listen to within the confines of System of a Down, that we shouldn't have time for anything else. I shouldn't have time to be here right now.
Why is that? What can you?
Why do marriages break up? Why do friendships that you've had for 20 years dissipate? It just happens. Especially when you're talking about four individuals that are artistic minded, you're going to have riffs. And the bottom line is the bigger you get as a band, the more people kind of tell you how great you are in the band and how your role is the most important role. And some people listen a little more than others and become enamored with their own ideas and kind of have to have an identity outside of the band. And other people don't. That's just the bottom line. And then you also have the natural progression of people where, they tend to grow in their own ways. We have four very distinct members in System. You're going to have a very different interview today than you did with Chavo because we're very different. Not better or worse, just different. Chavo is one of my closest friends. So I think it's natural for some bands to do that and really just get in their own way. And that's what I think we did. Here's
one of the byproducts, though, of the dysfunction you speak about with your band. That is a positive, if there is such a positive. And I see this all the time. And I was talking to Chavo about this. So many times, I think bands over tour and they play too much. And you see them on every festival and you see them out there constantly running through markets 2-3 times a year. A byproduct of the fact, I think, that records don't sell like they used to. You're not making money from selling music anymore. So everybody's got to get out on the road. Everybody's got to keep working it. And I think a lot of the draw, there's a fatigue set in. Oh, those guys again. Oh, those guys again. Get a band like System of a Down that doesn't play all that often. And when you do, it becomes a really an event. Kind of like when Rage Against the Machine is about to play now. That's becoming an event. You don't see them all the time. Chavo was telling me when he was here that last time you guys played LA as a headline, you did like 30,000 people.
47,000.
47,000 people.
Yeah. It's partly that, right? Like there is that demand.
Yeah.
And we've always been good about, hey, we're going to play. We know we could sell 3,000 seats. We're going to play the 2,000 seat venue and create a need to get into that show, like a frenzy, so to speak. But I also think it's because there aren't as many bands to put on these festivals. There's a lot more festivals.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less bands coming out that are getting to the level where you could attract 50 to 70,000 people. So you're going to have a lot of the same bands come out and play these festivals year after year, just because there's nobody bridging the gap between the bands. If you think about every era going back to the 60s, you had the Beatles and Zeppelin and the Stones in that era. Then you had, whoever came out in the 70s, Elton John, Sabbath. Sabbath came out in the 70s?
Yeah, 70. Actually, exactly 50 years ago was the first record, like a week ago.
And then in the 80s, you had bands come out, 90s, so on and so forth. And I feel like maybe in the last 20 years, that has diminished because the labels just aren't investing the money in bands like us. I also believe that System's unique. I think we can agree on that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure we would be signed today, and I'm not sure we would have been signed 10 years prior to when we got signed. It was just like the perfect storm. And there just aren't as many bands coming out that are rock bands or metal bands right now. Of course, that could change. As we discussed earlier, things tend to change and go in circles, and you might have a form of music that is popularized and then people are focused on it. If you remember the resurgence of really heavy rock in the late 90s. A lot of really heavy rock bands came out in the late 90s. And, now we've had about 15, 20 years where it got a little softer. That happened. I remember that happening in the early 80s. A lot of the new wave bands, but then it changed, and quite frankly, rock's had a really good long run.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges now, though, is that the whole model of how the music industry works has changed. it's you. I have bands in here all the time that like, oh, we don't really know if we want a record deal. We don't have a record deal. Like, there's no gatekeepers anymore.
It's a nice luxury.
So there's like an unbelievable amount of music out there. So I think there is a lot of great music out there. I think the problem is it's becoming more and more challenging for fans to find it, because literally anybody can put music out. Anybody can post something online. Anybody could make a video with their iPhone. It used to be you really needed some resources. You needed to accomplish something to get to that point. Now, anyone can do it. So it's really, there's a pro and a con to that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The pro being creative people will have an outlet. The con being there's probably a lot of people that shouldn't be making music or videos that are pumping them out there.
The same could be said for any medium. Anybody could have a podcast. Anybody could have a radio show. Anybody could be a comedian. Anybody could be anything.
How do you get above?
You can do absolutely nothing and be very famous. You can be famous for listening to other bands. I've been sent videos of people watching our music and reacting to it, and I have to tell you, I'm mesmerized by it. You know, like the old people listen to System of a Down, kids, whatever the case may be, listen to System of a Down. But the cream usually rises. Yeah. Really quality material will find a way, because people are always going to be the best marketing tool, better than a label, better than anything else. They'll listen to it. They'll be passionate about it. That passion will translate. If you love a sushi place, love it, you're going to tell everybody you know until you can no longer get into that sushi place.
Right. I want to talk to you, of course, about your EP, which is what you're here to promote, and some of the performances on it and some of the really cool versions of songs you've done on it. But one other, just a couple other quick things on System of a Down. When you talk about the dysfunction that exists within the band, was that something that was there right when you guys formed, or did it develop with success?
I can't speak on the original formation because I was a late member.
Right.
You know, I'm the newest guy in the band.
How many years in?
3 years I joined.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, there's always been.
But when you first got in,
it was there before. I was friends with the guys before I was in the band, and it was there then.
Yeah.
But like everything else, the more money and fame you have, the more complicated it becomes. You know, I feel like somehow you lose sight of that mentality that got you there, which is us versus them. I'm not the first person to say this.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing that happens in every single band. Used to be us versus everybody, right? We've got something to prove. We're going to get our music out there. We're struggling. We're broke. You know, what are we going to do with our lives if this doesn't work out? And those types of challenges, you know, that's what makes the sword resolute, right?
Mm.
Like, that's what makes it strong. And then when you don't have those things, well, you have to come up with different motivations to still have that fire. You know, otherwise you just become a greatest hits band.
Right.
You know?
How'd you get the gig? You said you knew him, but...
I knew him. I knew the drummer. We were all friends. We rehearsed in the same studio. We were all broke, so we would have times where we could rehearse. And System had their time, and then my band had ours, and we'd kind of hang out while we did rehearsals and writing music and all that. So it was a really cool situation. Some incredibly fun times that I look very fondly on. And, you know, I was just discussing with my manager the other day, trying to navigate through all this dysfunction is very difficult. It's very saddening and maddening in some ways. But I was just reflecting on all the good times we had and how amazing a career we've had, and the fact that, you know, more than 3 people come to see us play, which is something that I didn't have very much luck with before System. You know, like, it was really forcing people to come see us play at places when they could just come see us in our rehearsal.
You grew up here in LA?
I did, yeah.
So you had a lot of bands prior to System, I would imagine.
I wouldn't say a lot. There were probably like from the age of 15 to around 23, you know, 4 or 5 bands.
And what one got the furthest?
None of them.
None of them.
Well, by furthest, you know, we played shows at the Whiskey and Roxy, but anyone
never a deal or anything.
Anyone that could sell 40 tickets could play the Whiskey or Roxy,
right.
Pretty much.
Right.
You know, so we played those venues, and you know, all those experiences though are learning experiences, and they build you up to who you end up being in your career wherever it goes.
Are you excited that it seems like there's some activity going on now for System with some shows?
It's nice to play live. I enjoy it. I have sorry, it's my phone. I don't know if you could hear it.
No, we're good.
Okay. I tend to focus on like 1 or 2 members in the audience, kind of play to them, you know, because when you're playing to so many people and you're sitting there, you really, while you're playing, it's a little boring sometimes, right? So I'll focus on one person and just be like, I'm playing the show for you, for this song or half a song or whatever, and then I'll focus on the next person.
Really? That's interesting. So that's the way you kind of make a connection, zoning in on an individual.
Yeah.
As
well, I'm in the
opposed
back.
Right.
You know, they don't even know I'm zoning in on them. That's the best part.
You're peering through underneath symbols or something.
Exactly. but you know, you see the joy in their face, and they're having such a good time. And I just remember, like, I was that guy too. You know, having the nosebleed seats, going to see Rush, saying I'm going to be on that stage one day, and saving up my money to do that, and being excited about it for 3 months. I still feel that through them.
Yeah.
You know, because now I go to a concert. I'm looking at the production. I'm waiting for mistakes to be made. You know, like I'm critiquing everything. And then sometimes I'm just enjoying the music, but usually I'm doing all those other things first. And I just like the idea of somebody coming there, being passionate about it, playing the music on the way there, getting some food, talking to their friends, the excitement. You can't sleep the night before, you know, like you're just so amped for the event. And then you go, and it's just like an explosion that happens, and you may never see it again. And that's a unique experience that you're sharing with however many people are in that venue with you. Only you guys have that connection for that particular time.
What was your first concert?
Aside from my dad's gigs when I was a kid.
Your dad was a musician?
He was a musician. He played saxophone.
Okay.
He actually started on drums.
Okay.
Which probably explains where I got it from.
Right. First rock show you saw, though?
Pink Floyd, Momentary Lapse of Reason tour at the Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played at the Coliseum with Summer Sanitarium with Metallica headlining on my birthday, July 15th, like, 10, 12 years later.
Wow. Amazing stuff, man. All right, we got to take a break. We're going to come back, though. We got plenty more time with John. Want to talk about this EP that John has done, which is an EP of cover tunes, a very eclectic mix of artists that he's covered, done things in a really interesting way on this. We're going to get into it, and also some guests that he has on the record, and more with John from System of a Down. Coming back right after this on Trunk Nation on Volume. Dolmayan of System of a Down is here in the studio with me this hour, live from L.A. on Trunk Nation. So John and I just realized we did meet in Vegas because I'm wearing a Winery Dog shirt, and you were at the show at Vamped, and
That's
we were
right.
both on the bus.
That's right.
You said you're friends with Mike, right?
I want to say I'm friends with Mike. He's a very nice guy that
Yeah.
I've met a few times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I guess we probably did meet briefly there. We were talking off air for a second. How long have you lived in Vegas?
Since 2003.
And so I was telling John that people know how much I love that town, and I have so many friends there, and I'd love to relocate there one day.
A lot of
telling
people,
me the pros and the cons of it.
There's a lot of people moving to Vegas right now.
Yeah.
It's just lower cost of living. No state income tax, obviously, is nice.
And you had to come here to L.A., which I'm sure you do often. And do you drive it? Do you fly it? What do you do?
I always drive.
You drive.
By the time you go to even if you're landing in Burbank, by the time you go to the airport, you got to go an hour before. Sometimes the flight gets delayed, then you're screwed. You know, it's just easier to drive. You catch up with people, you make phone calls.
How much time does it take you to do the drive usually?
I know when to drive, so usually about 3.5 hours.
Doing it, that's pretty good. Around
Yeah.
4 is the average, I think, right?
I got screwed twice. Not bad. You know, it's been almost 20 years. So
You mean with traffic?
real bad.
Oh, really?
When it's bad, it's bad.
So
If
you
there's
have
an
to,
accident or
yeah,
something unforeseen happens,
yeah.
you can get pretty screwed. So I always make sure I have a full tank of gas. No matter what.
Yeah, because I've only done that drive once or twice, and it's been a long time. But if I recall, there's a long stretch where you got nothing, right?
Nothing. Yeah. That's not where you want to get stuck.
Do you see people all the time that are stuck over there?
Highway Patrol's so on it.
Yeah.
You know, they just help people right away. When they're not giving me tickets, they're helping people.
All right, so let's talk about this record, man. You've made your own EP. You've done a bunch of cover tunes here. You've got some special guests. Tell me, I mean, was this born out of the fact of, what you expressed earlier, that your main band, System of a Down, is not as active as you wish it would be? That you said, I got to find something I want to do now?
I may have done it anyway, had I had the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, we haven't been in the studio since 2005 to record anything. It's a pretty long time to go stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from an album I did with my guitar player in 2008, there has been really no experience in the studio for me, which is, of course, disheartening. So This was bred out of these long drives to Vegas back and forth when I would come to visit friends and family here in L.A. or if I had business to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just listen to music, off and on SiriusXM, and just put on a station and listen to it. And the songs would come on, and I was like, well, you start to think, like, how would I have approached that song if that song was presented to me? What kind of drums would I have created for it? Or how would Keith Moon have played that song? I'm a big Keith Moon fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started to kind of formulate a list of songs that I had an interest in covering. And then, 4 long years later, after coming up with the idea, we finally finished it. It took forever.
Why did it take so long?
Getting the artists together. I had 2 kids in the interim.
Oh, wow.
Life gets in the way a lot.
Yeah.
Didn't get in the way when I was 25 because I had no life.
Right. The album is called These Gray Men. It's out on February 28th. Just coming out under your own name, John Dolmayan. What's the deal with the title, These Gray Men?
So when I was making the album, initially, I had a friend living with me in Vegas, and he was a former Navy SEAL. And just a really sweet person. You would never know what he did for a living if he didn't tell you. And he was very nondescript. He was the guy you didn't notice in the room, but he had a presence to him. And he would say that, like, they were trained as Navy SEALs to be the gray man in the room, the guy you didn't notice, the guy that would surprise you. And I thought, like, well, being a drummer is kind of like that, right? You really don't notice a drummer unless there's a disaster on stage.
Right.
But yet they're kind of integral to the band's performance and the sound and everything else, so I thought it was fitting and I went with it.
So the idea being from his perspective about being a Navy SEAL is you want a gray man just kind of like blends in.
Yeah, you
so
blend
to speak.
in.
You don't stand out. You don't seek the attention, but you're there when needed.
Correct. But you're always also acutely aware of what's going on.
Right.
I guess I'm acutely aware when I'm looking out in the audience and picking that one person. But
I thought you saying you lived in Vegas. I thought you were going to tell me it's a reference to like Area 51 and you're seeing gray men, coming out of there.
You had Chavo on here, so I'm sure he's seen a couple of them.
Let's run down some of the songs on here because you've got an eclectic mix of songs and and different guests on the tracks. Now, do you play anything besides drums on the record?
I did some programming of strings and keyboards and stuff like that, which was the first time I'd ever done that. It was a lot of fun. So now I'm constantly on the iPad on GarageBand or something like that. It's amazing what you could do on just an iPad with GarageBand.
Yeah.
Really cool. A lot of fun.
Do you sing at all?
No. You can hear my voice.
So there's no vocal from you on the record at all anywhere?
No, thankfully, no. There's no vocal. Well, actually, you know what? I did one vocal.
You did?
I did one little part. Yeah, it's like a falsetto thing I did.
All right. Well, you do have on the first 2 tracks on the record, of course, your System of a Down bandmate and singer Serge. So
I have some naked pictures of him.
I was going to say public. How did that conversation go? Everything was cool. You just reached out to him. Obviously, yeah.
It was just as simple as that. I said, "Look, I'm doing a cover album. Do you want to be on it?" And he said, "Sure."
Now the songs that Serge sings, a cover of Talking Heads' Road to Nowhere, and a cover of David Bowie's Starman. Did he pick those, or those are the ones you told him you wanted him to do? How did it work?
Well, I gave him a couple of options, Starman being one of them, and he picked Starman. He loves David Bowie, and I don't know if you heard the version, but it's really cool. It's very, I guess you could say it's System-y, right?
Yeah, well, totally.
I mean, you got 2 members of System on it, so it's going to sound somewhat like System.
Right.
And, of course, Serge has a very distinct voice. With the Road to Nowhere, I really wanted him to sing that song from day one. I just felt like his tone worked for it, and it is, David Byrne's out there,
right?
And Serge can be out there too, especially artistically. So I thought that was a perfect amalgam.
I've always maintained when somebody does a cover, any artist does a cover, I always like when they do some different things with it and they take liberties with it. To me, if you're going to do a note by note cover of a song, it's kind of
why
like,
bother?
Why bother?
Yeah. I
like when they put their spin on it and make it their own. And that's what you've done with every one of these songs. That was obviously your idea going into it as well. Let me pay respect to these songs that I like, but also pull them apart a little bit.
Yeah. The idea is that you almost want people to listen to it and not know that it's a cover. You know, otherwise, why bother? If you're going to make it, like you said, note for note, exactly like the original, but you already have the original, why do we need you doing it?
Right.
You know, but there's artists out there that do note for note covers, and maybe they do it for fun, but I'm releasing this as something unique and putting my flavors into it. And again, I'm approaching it as if those songs were brought to me and I had to create the drums for it.
Right.
And then how I would have influenced the song going forward from there.
So, and going into the next break, I'm going to play for everybody a little bit of the version of Starman so you guys can hear what we're talking about here, because it's really, really cool. Let me go down the list as well, because there's a few songs here that, in all honesty, I don't know that I want to get the backstory on. And one would be the third track, What I Know. Tell me about that one.
I don't know much about it either. I heard it on the radio a couple of times.
Okay.
It's a really good song. And has actually, I saw a video for it, and the video was fantastic. So,
the band that did it is called Two Door Cinema Club.
Yeah, you haven't heard that song?
I have not.
Listen to it; it's really good.
Yeah,
their original version is really good.
How old is it? Do you know when what that band existed?
I wouldn't say it's more than 10 years old.
Okay, so you just heard it, and you were like, that would be a cool song to do.
That's it. Yeah,
the original version of the song was a hit, or no?
I would say so. I don't know if it was massive, but it is a really good song. It's a catchy song. Their version is much faster than mine. That's one of the songs that I actually slowed down and made it more of a ballad, at least for the first half of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you would enjoy it.
Because, see, the thing is, like, you talk about covers, so a song like Road to Nowhere or a song like Starman, most people are going to know the original versions of that song and start to hear your version and pull it apart and say, well, that's a cover. But then when you get into doing songs, which I always find interesting, that are covers, but the original versions were not huge songs. Though most people, unless they look at songwriting credits, have no idea it's a cover.
A lot of people don't. But there's a covers album, so it's a little easier to figure out.
Right. But I'm saying throughout history, there have been songs that are affiliated hugely with one band.
You also make it your own.
Right.
You know, when you release music, you really no longer own that music in a lot of ways. You know, like, it's for the world to enjoy, and it's past you at that point.
Yeah.
You know, it's out there. I think the process of creating it is where you own it, and then after that, it is the world's.
So What I Know features who else on it besides yourself?
My friend Jonathan, who is in a band from Brazil called Ego Kill Talent. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're a really good hard rock band.
Okay. No, I've not heard of them.
You're going to be hearing about them. They're
Ego
Kill Talent.
From Brazil.
I've been begging them to add an S to that, you know, because you just naturally want to say that.
So he's the singer on it?
He's the singer on that. And then a good friend, James Hazley, who is in an independent band, 20 years ago called Cockeyed Ghost. He helped me work on this entire project. And then there's other collaborators as well.
So just so you guys get an idea of the variety here that's represented in John's record, you got a Talking Heads cover, then you got a Bowie cover with Serge Tankian from System, his bandmate singing. And then you've got this song, What I Know. And then you get your 50s on and get into Del Shannon and do Runaway.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that decision, how that one came to you.
You might remember this. There was a show on TV. It was basically like a noir detective show. And it was set in like the 40s or 50s. And Runaway was the theme music to the show. I mean, this is like going back to the mid 80s.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
It was like Crime Story or something. I can't remember exactly what it was called. Maybe it was that. And that was the first time I'd heard that song. And I'd actually covered that song in several bands leading up to me making the cover for this covers album.
Okay.
But I never like this. This was like, this is more like a fusion version of it, especially the latter part, second half of the song. I mean, it's out. I really wanted Santana to play on it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get him. I thought he would be perfect for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you have singing on it, Frankie Perez.
Yes.
Who I know lives in Vegas, and I know Frankie, and he's doing a band with Geezer Butler and Steve Stevens and those guys, trying to get that going. Deadland Ritual. They were in here not too long ago.
Yeah. Great guy.
Great guy. Great singer as well.
He was also in Scars on Broadway.
Oh, okay. So that was the connection for you to connect with Frankie?
We've been very close friends ever since Scars on Broadway, and I left that band. He's just a dear friend and an incredible talent.
Yeah, he really is. He really is a great singer. All right, so you got him doing Runaway, and then you've got a Radiohead cover on here.
That's right.
Talk about that one.
My favorite song from Radiohead and my favorite video from Radiohead. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's beautiful.
Street Spirit?
Yeah.
Check
it out.
I've not seen the video.
It's a bunch of ballerinas in the desert, all slow motion. It's black and white. It's a film almost, and I have a lot of respect for Radiohead, especially their first 4 albums. Was a big fan of theirs. And this was a song where I wanted the drums to come in earlier. I said, well, let's do it from the beginning.
And the guests on that, 2 guys I know quite well, M. Shadows from Avenged and Tom Morello. So starting with Shadows, when I saw, because you released that as a single, that's a single and video out there now, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so people can see and hear that one right now, Street Spirit. When I saw the video and heard that Shadows was on it, I immediately texted him and said to him, hey, man, really cool that you've done this, because that guy's been through a lot with his voice.
Especially recently.
Recently, and I was really, last time, because I come out here every month to LA, and I usually reach out to him. And
feel free to reach out to me.
I will.
I'm here all the time.
I come to Vegas. We're going to do a week of shows from Vegas. I'd love to have you on with me when we're in Vegas.
I'm happy to do it. You let me know.
We're going to set that up. But I'd love to. But I reached out to Shadows because a couple times he said he couldn't even talk. He goes, I can only text. I can't come on because I literally can't talk. He was on total vocal rest.
That was I think almost 2 months he was on vocal rest.
Yeah, for a long
time. He couldn't talk at all.
Yeah. So when I saw him record now when did he record this? Before all that happened?
All that. Yeah.
Okay. Because then when I saw it, I was like, okay. And I just recently texted him. I said, so you're doing well because you're on this track. And he said, I'm getting there. He said, I have to relearn some things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm still working on some stuff.
That's the thing about vocalists. You're relying on a muscle that is hard to repair, and once lost, it's almost impossible to recover it.
Yeah.
It's not like a tricep or something like that you can go and get a surgery for and be okay. Maybe play in a diminished way as a drummer, or you get tendonitis. You could fight through those things. But with vocals, it's very difficult.
So did Shadows did the song before all his vocal issues? That he cut the vocal?
I think he did over a year ago.
Okay.
Or maybe longer, maybe 2 years ago.
And the video, was that done at that time, or was that done recently?
We did that recently.
Okay, so for that, obviously, in a video, he doesn't have to really sing.
No, we talked a little bit, but no
right.
singing there. And the star in that is a comic book artist named Bill Sienkiewicz, who's a close friend of mine. Mm-hmm. I'm very much into comic books, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
I did not know that.
I have 2 comic book stores.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, and I'm writing a comic book series.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's coming out in July. I forgot to mention that.
Always a big passion of yours, comics?
Always has been, yeah. Since I was like 12 years old.
Okay.
Been big fan of them.
Where are your stores?
One is coincidentally in Las Vegas, and the other one is in Orange County.
Okay, cool. So you've got Shadows on there, and the other guy is my good buddy Morello, who we were supposed to go out last night, but he's sick. he's sick. Yeah, he's got the cold or flu or something. So
is that the excuse he gave you?
No, trust me.
I'm just joking.
When Tom and I hang, we hang hard.
Do you?
Do you drink?
I mean, I've been known to throw back a couple here and there.
God, we've been known to pull out of some bars in town at 3 a.m. and feeling no pain. So
right.
I definitely will I'll get your number during the break because you got to hang with us.
As long as you have some nice 18-year-old scotch.
Last time I was with Tom, we're at a place, and true story. The guy comes over, and he recognizes Tom. He's excited. Tom's there. He says, "What do you like?" And Tom thinks of a nice bourbon or something. He goes, "I got something. I'm going to take care of you. I got this, buddy." And I bust Tom's balls about it all the time because he's like, "Yeah, this is good. These are 2-3 rounds coming and drinking it. The things are coming. Little glasses. They're like." Then the bill comes like $50 a glass.
No, it's not that bad.
Oh, for someone. I work at SiriusXM, John.
You had to pay. Oh, I didn't know.
I'm not in rage against the machine.
I thought Tom picked up the bill.
No, Tom did later that day. It's all good. We were just joking, but me and my buddies used to we saw per drink $50. Like, what the hell? Especially because the guy presented it like it was on the house because he was all excited, and then he charged it. I'm not talking about Tom did anything wrong. It was hysterical.
Well, wait, did he at least give him the first one as a compliment?
I don't know. All I know is the bill came and we were like, it was like $600 or something for a couple rounds of drinks. We're like, what the hell just happened here?
Well,
it was a good night. It's a good story.
In my earlier single days, this is even before I lived in Vegas, we used to go to Vegas almost every weekend.
Yeah.
And I became very good friends with, let's say, someone who had questionable business dealings that owned a strip club,
Okay.
who was under indictment at the time, and he got out of the indictment somehow, and gave me a key to the back door of the strip club and a locker for my bottles of Blue Label. So I would keep my bottle of Blue Label in a locker. When I went there, we would pull it out, bring it to our table, drink it, and then put it back if we didn't finish it.
I got a feeling that we may know the same guy that you're talking about.
We may.
Well, I'll ask you during the commercial break.
Well, it's Crazy Horse too.
Rick.
Remember that? Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a small world.
How the hell? That is crazy. Oh, I got stories for you too.
I don't know,
Different kind of stories, but I got stories.
We're going to segue into some interesting stories.
Oh my God. Well, we only got about 15 minutes left to go on the show. We could go down a rabbit hole
I can
here.
go later.
No, I can't. I have to end right on time.
Oh, that's bullshit.
I do. There's another show after me. All right, let's get a break. Let's get our last break in. I want to go through the rest of these tracks, talk about Morello being on here and the rest of what's on John's record. If we have time, we'll squeeze in a call or two at 844-686-5863, 8446-VOLUME. There are System of a Down dates coming up as well, so check your listings and go out and check them out. But we'll talk more about John's record right when we come back. Dolmayan of System of a Down is here. We talking during the break, man. It's funny you start connecting the dots. We got a ton of mutual friends and people that we've both known for a long, long time, and we're just catching up and sort of realizing we've been in the same space, knowing a lot of the same people for a very long time.
Some of them we can't get rid of.
And sadly, one of them, Kerry Simon, no longer with us, who was people that know a tremendous guy and a great chef and had a bunch of restaurants throughout Vegas. Miss him all the time. We had some great times together, and really good guy. Died of just horrible illness. So. But yeah, Mike Piazza is a good friend of mine, and then we were just connecting all these dots of people that we know that we used to hang out with there. Anyway, before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we get through your record. So Morello comes in and plays. Your connection to Tom, just knowing him over the years, I'm assuming?
Yeah, Rage basically broke up when System released their first album. So they were ending their career, so to speak, as Rage Against the Machine when System was starting it. But Serge met Tom Morello somewhere. They became friends, and of course, through Serge, I met Tom. Tom and I are very different politically. We have a lot of different ideas on life, but I find him to be a very sincere, good person who really cares about other people. And the fact that we don't agree or share the same politics hasn't stopped us from being friends.
And it shouldn't. I mean, that's a big problem. I mean, I've as well as I know Tom, and we hang out all the time, I've never even had that conversation with him.
We don't talk politics.
At all. I mean, all we do is talk about like old 80s metal. That's all we do. Yeah. Literally, that's all we do. I've never gone down that road.
Which again, music is the tie that binds everyone.
Yeah, but even if you have differing beliefs, it just doesn't mean that you still can't be friends with people and respect.
The idea should be that you gain perspective.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have a different way of thinking, I have a different way of thinking. I can grow by listening to your thoughts on things. I might still disagree with you, but at least I can think about it, and maybe do some research and either be more resolute in my way of thinking or change it slightly. You're going to change your way of thinking over the years, by the way. You're not going to think the way you think at 19 that you do at 40. And I would imagine at 47, I won't be thinking the same way as when I'm 60 if I'm still around.
Yeah, I think it's just crazy how polarized everything is, and
I think it's with a purpose.
Yeah,
divided people are easier to control.
Yeah. Okay, so you got Morello on there with Shadow's Street Spirit Radiohead cover. Now, the other one that I thought was really interesting is you do a Madonna cover on here of Hung Up, and you really do. I mean, again, doing different things to these songs is, I think, what's incredibly cool about your record. Talk a little bit about your approach to doing Madonna's Hung Up.
So I heard that, ironically, at a club in Italy, and I was like, wow, that melody line is really good. I later found out that what I liked about the song was actually from ABBA, not really Madonna created. So I got rid of her lyrics, which were mundane, and wrote some new lyrics. And then I just felt like it was doing the same thing over and over again. So I said, well, I need something else that's really substantive for the middle part. And what's better than Neil Young? So I threw Ohio in the middle part. The artist that's singing on it, her name is Cedar Show. She is an Armenian artist, very popular Armenian artist, and an amazing voice, but she's generally in pop. So I took her and put her in a rock setting just to change it up a little bit more.
Is she based here now?
She lives in Armenia, but she's an international star.
Oh, wow. So you had she's a big star internationally.
Correct.
So you had a line to her, you knew her, or did you reach out to her and say?
We met, I want to say like 20 years ago, the first time I went to Armenia just to visit the homeland. And we had mutual friends. She was, I think, like 15 or 16 years old when I first met her.
She was a star then?
She was a star then.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And just a very sweet person, nice family. And we just kept in touch.
It is a wild version of a song. Now, look, I know this is my thing is all rock here, this show, but you got to understand what John has done to this song.
It's rock.
It's rock. It's really cool. And I had to go back when I knew I was going to talk to you when I was running down the track listing. I couldn't remember because that song, I guess, for Madonna was a big song, but not a huge song. It
was big internationally. Really big.
Okay. So I couldn't, just off the title, admittedly, I don't know that much about pop music, but just off the title, I couldn't recall the song. Yeah. So then I went in and I found her version to A.B. it against yours.
That you say
yeah.
I'll do.
And now you said, what's the connection to ABBA? Was it she sampled it from ABBA?
There's a melody line that she samples.
Yeah,
and it's it's the crux of the song. It's the best part of the song. So basically, that's what I wrote the song around, is that melody. I completely got rid of her lyrics. They're all gone.
Right.
I mean, you can barely call it a cover at this point. It's new lyrics, totally redid the song, but it's based on that melody line. So technically, you still have to give credit to the original.
Before we move on to the final two tracks here, Evan, back in the studio in New York, if you can, Evan, and you can. We have some samples of the record. If you can give us a little bit of Hung Up so you can hear what John has done to Madonna.
Yeah.
He's only fading it because we have this ridiculous rule here, because this is a talk channel. We can only play 30-second clips of music.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
Publishing things with different channels on it. So anyway.
Whatever.
Yeah, you got a taste of Hung Up, and you're hearing other songs from John's records.
You can hear it all in a couple of days.
And you hear it all in a couple of days because this album comes out on February 28th. Again, it's called These Gray Men.
I have a copy for you in the car if you want one.
A physical copy? You get a CD?
I'll give you an LP and a CD.
I love a CD. I'm all about CDs still. I love that. Thank you.
No problem.
Beautiful Thieves, AFI. Tell me about that one.
That's a song that I went to the Troubadour. My manager also manages AFI.
Okay.
So I went to the Troubadour to check out their show, and I was blown away by them. I'd never seen them before prior to that day. Mm-hmm. And they had played that song, Beautiful Thieves. It's a much gentler version that they play, and I just loved it. And it stuck in my head after I left. And any song that sticks in your head like that, you know that you're going to love forever. And I said, okay, I want to cover that song, but how can I mangle this song as much as possible? So I basically did like a thrash version of it. I asked Davey to sing on it, but he was like, look, I sing on the original. It's going to be weird if I sing on your cover, which I understood. He's a very sweet guy, too.
He does some stuff here on this channel, actually. Yeah. He's on Volume West, right, Alex?
Davey Havoc is one of our rotating co-hosts on Volume West.
Yeah, on this exact channel, actually. So Beautiful Thieves, and the artist singing on that is Jonah Perry Nimoy.
He's actually Spock's. They actually portray Spock's grandson.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild, man.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And we got introduced by a friend of mine, Dave Hagopian, who was the original bass player for a band called Soil.
I remember them.
Which broke up and became System of a Down.
Wow.
There's like a big connection there. And he's a really good kid, very talented guitar player and singer. And he's going to be making a name for himself.
And finally, you've got an Eminem cover on here of Rock Bottom.
Yes, that resembles nothing of the original. There's no vocals on it whatsoever. Not to say that I won't put vocals on it later, I might. But basically, I've been asked to do a drum solo for years, but I find them kind of boring at shows, you know? The joke is that people go to get beer when the drummer's doing the drum solo.
Of course, yeah.
And I've also seen some really, really bad ones. I'm not going to say which band.
Right.
But people asked, and my dad is a big jazz guy, so it's kind of like homage. What is it?
Homage
To my dad. It's kind of like a Joe Morello drum solo, kind of like inspired by Joe Morello, the jazz drummer.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, just for fun.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the rundown of These Gray Men, the debut EP from John Dolmayan, who's here in the studio with me. We had a great chat. Again, the album is out on February 28th. So very soon you'll be able to get this. And really cool, different, adventurous versions of doing songs. I think if you're going to do covers, like I said earlier, that's what you want to do. You want to have some fun with it. We got about 2 minutes before I have to end. Is there anything I didn't hit, anything you want to mention or plug before we have to wrap up?
I have an original concept comic book coming out in July out of my own publishing company, and it's basically about what people would do with immortality. You know, who would they betray to be immortal? Would they leave their family? What personal choices you'd make? And it's a sci-fi series that I'm putting out, but you'll hear more about it. I'll send you a copy.
Do you hope to be able to, or is there any mechanism that you think that you could do live shows yourself for this record?
I do want to do at least one live show with it, but I want to make it something special. Trying to get all the artists there that are on it, maybe even inviting others.
Right.
Or even doing songs that aren't necessarily on this album, because I recorded other songs as well. So yeah, if I could do something really interesting, both musically and visually, I would absolutely consider doing it.
Pleasure to meet you, man. Thank you for coming in.
Likewise.
I feel like I know you because we got a lot of mutual friends. We're talking off the air, so it's very cool to connect. And again, check out John's record, available on February 28th, wherever you get your music. He's going to give me a good old CD, which is still my favorite way to get it, as everybody knows. So I'm going to go and grab that from his car right now. And I appreciate you coming in. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I will have a best of tomorrow as I'm traveling, and I'll be back live again from LA on Monday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Volume for more rock talk. Also, thanks to Dee Snider for calling in earlier in the show. Have a good weekend. I'll catch you on Monday. Best of show tomorrow.